checking in with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for another Tacky Talk on this Valentine's Day, Tacky.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day. Clearly, I did not get the hint on color choices.
I thought maybe flowers or candy or something, but no.
I'm relatively drab compared to you today. But I wish everyone a wonderful Valentine's Day and hope you're able to spend time today with your loved one. Hopefully, you got time over the weekend despite the Super Bowl to do so. I know not all families, that's not a bonding moment. Everybody's different about the feeling on sports, but again, it's one of those events that bring many people together, families and friends to enjoy. Actually, this year's game was quite incredible.
Yeah, it was right down to the last minute or so it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm one of those folks that if it isn't really happening by halftime and it's a blowout, I kind of lose interest really fast. And now I'm just watching commercials there for an end. But the reality is, got YouTube. So if you miss a Super Bowl commercial, it isn't like you can't go find it.
Oh yeah, and those companies will be playing those commercials all year because they paid a whole lot of money to have them produced.
Yeah, those 30-second ads, millions and millions of dollars to get hundreds of millions of eyes to watch it. But it's also like Sunday night, and I think I'm not the only one, but you're right. In Quincy, particularly trash day is on Monday. You got that whole cleanup thing you got to do. I got to find that moment. You're not going to watch the commercial. You got to watch the show. And I don't really want to take out my garbage that late at night, but I do have to pack this up. So it's like everybody else, they try to get, some other stuff done. It's weird as you get older. There's more stuff you need to do that you didn't have to worry about when you were much, much, much younger, when you weren't responsible for anything.
Yes, the responsibilities change. That's right. Yeah.
But no, there was a great Kansas City nailed biter right to the end, and football strategy was in play. Relatively clean game, not a lot of penalties, and very, very high powered offenses that really just dominated the field and extremely aggressive. It was a good game. It was very good, but the strategy in the last minute or so was pretty fascinating. Don't give them a touchdown. Don't give him a touchdown. Just don't go in there. It's like everybody, the Eagles are like, come on. You want the touchdown. No, we're not doing that. We're going to ground the ball here.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. Yeah. Of course, the biggest change this year for the Super Bowl here in Massachusetts was you could bet on it legally this time.
Yeah, I expect the sports betting numbers to be phenomenal. I think a combination of the fact you can do it. I think the combinations of being a novelty because it's the first time you can do it. Drives up a lot of these numbers. Will these numbers hold indefinitely? Probably not. I mean, sports betting, if you look at nationally how it works, it's very much an ebb and flow industry. It's simple, right? I mean, you got to bet on the big games, even casual bettors, just like betting on Powerball at $1 billion. I can't believe we say $1 billion Powerballs when people are interested. But, once you get huge numbers on a special event, people are more inclined to want to, drop a couple of bucks on it. And the same phenomenon will happen with sports betting. People who are regular sports bettor who really follow sports, similar to horse racing, people who like horse racing, follow horse racing or wager on horse racing. Same thing with sports betting. And, next coming up is, of course, March Madness, which is coming up really quick. It feels like, I know it's only the 14th of February, but, it's been flying so far in 2023 in terms of time. Be next moment you have a lot of major wagering, especially if you get closer and closer to the end of March Madness. So don't expect these kind of consistent numbers from the Super Bowl. It's going to be a continual ebb and flow. And we get to the dog days of summer, and you got baseball season coming in. We got so many games you could bet on. Plus you got golf, and you got do people bet on soccer? I have no idea, but I don't know if they bet on soccer. But obviously there's a number of other sporting events in summertime. But the betting will be a little more steady, but it won't have these monster spikes. And I always tell people that sports betting is not a guaranteed win for the house. The odds are set by the house, but there's no guaranteed wins. And, they got to be able to average out their wins and losses because, things don't go right in terms of a game. The house gets beat.
Yeah, they can't do that too many times and stay in business, right?
Yeah, and they get beat really badly. They just get beat when they miss the odds. They get beat hard. So you're right. They can't miss too many times. But fortunately, for gaming facilities, they have other revenue in terms of slot machines, table games, entertainment, rentals, food, or in the case of playing virtual horse track and simulcasting, they have the ability to kind of buffer against any top losses. Big companies like DraftKings are online now. I mean, they keep costs very low, but they've also, been, track record of figuring out how to manage their money in a manner that they can buffer against their losses.
Yeah, I've already seen the TV ads for a lot of the online mobile sports betting apps. So they're anticipating, I think it starts in March here.
Yeah, they go getting ready for March Madness.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, this is a difficult business strategy here, and they have a very specific audience, right? I mean, Massachusetts is a huge sports town on so many different levels, like many levels, and it crosses gender. I mean, it's both men and women here follow Boston sports, and but not surprising, the ads I've heard so far tend to be male oriented.
Right. Yeah. Interestingly, first couple of days of legal betting. And there was already problems with a couple of the casinos accepting bets that they shouldn't have.
Not surprising. Every state has different rules and regulations regarding how it operates. I generally hold casinos in particular to a very high standard because there are multi-state regulatory entities. Corporate should know better how to do these things. Hopefully this won't happen again.
Yeah, the good news was they were both self-reported. They recognized the error and told the state, hey, we screwed up. So I guess that's good. Yeah.
Again, the better off fessing up to it and trying to remedy than rather be caught later and face a suspension.
Right. So here we are, Valentine's Day. Are we feeling the love on Beacon Hill these days, Tacky?
No, you have to ask the speaker what the love looks like. Obviously, we're still waiting. I'm still waiting for committee assignments. We have created temporary committees just to get some basic operations out of the way. Temporary committee on Ways and Means, temporary committee on Rules, temporary committee on Transportation, because we have a number of bills that have come to the legislature from the governor, especially a supplemental budget, economic bond bill. Obviously, rules debate has finished. The joint rules are not the same. Not surprising for House and Senate. So there's a joint rules, temporary House Rules Committee to appoint a conference committee on rules. And there's always speculation, right? This is a business where there's a lot of speculation. I do not ask the speaker for a sneak peek. I mean, part of the exercise for me and my staff is to actually understand how things work and, do some calculated guessing, I guess, on what we think the assignments are based on my knowledge of the building and how things operate. So it's not about being right or wrong. It's actually a good intellectual exercise for myself as well as the staff regarding the internal operations and the various dynamics that are personality driven, skill driven, seniority driven, education driven, professional driven. It's not always a simple cut and dry on how assignments are done. It can be multiple faceted factors. And of course, understanding how the speaker operates is one of those calculations. So, the staff and I have a little spreadsheet going. We're going to fill it out.
Oh, your own March Madness.
We're having our own March Madness to see what our guesstimate of the future looks like.
Your legislative bracket.
More or less, yes. I mean, I could ask the speaker for a sneak peek, but I think it's better to go through this exercise. I don't think the speaker fully appreciates this exercise as much as I do, but also it's a learning tool for the staff about the internal functioning of the State House as well. So it's multifaceted. I think somebody may figure out, I do think it's important to teach people how the building works, especially people that work for me. It's very important to teach them how the place works. And these little exercises are helpful that way.
Yeah, well, the speaker knows well. He was in your shoes for many years, so he knows where it's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, now he's making appointments. I don't think he has the same fun in it.
Oh, I think you're right about that.
I don't think it's the same level of fun between the two of us.
Yeah, I think you're right. Hey, actually, it was nice to see you and the speaker and Bruce Ayers and Brian Lynch in studio here talking about the circuit breaker tax credit.
Yeah, last year we congratulated Brian Lynch on his retirement, and appears he didn't take it. Brian Lynch is from Department of Revenue. He goes around the state to inform people of the senior circuit breaker tax credit, which basically is just a tax credit for senior citizens, anyone age 65 above who meets certain guidelines on income and certain guidelines on the property value, the assessed value of property or rent, and are able to get a tax credit, which translates to cash, on your state taxes. And it's Schedule CB, the form, so you can kind of run through that worksheet to see if you qualify. And we strongly encourage everybody who's age 65 and over to at least fill out the worksheet to see if they qualify, even if you pay no taxes.
Mhm.
It's a tax
Absolutely.
credit.
Yep.
Yeah, credit doesn't mean that you need to pay taxes. It's a tax credit, and the credit's weighed against your property taxes, your rent, and your water sewer bill. So, strongly encourage. I believe it's over about $1,200 this cycle. And I want to remind folks again, if you're over 65 and you did not take advantage of this in prior years, you have up to 3 years worth of amended returns you could get, and that could be up to $3,000, depending on exactly how much you qualified for, but potentially about $3,000+ depending on the circumstances. It's well worth at least filling out the worksheet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. When my mom was alive, she took advantage of it for several years, and it was a big help to help her stay in her home and afford to live in her home.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not sure about your numbers, call the assessor's office. They can give you your tax bill numbers, they give you your water bill numbers. They're more than happy to help you provide that information, your assessment numbers. So if you're like, 2 years from ago that you're trying to fill it out, I don't have my tax bill, I don't have my water bill, I don't know what my assessed value is. Just call the assessor's office. They can look you up and give those numbers right away, and they can just fill out the worksheet. Again, there's no harm in filling out. It's only a page. It isn't that complicated, to be honest with you.
Yeah. What's the actual, there's a formula, right, Jackie, that you have to qualify for?
Yeah, I believe it's income guidelines are I believe $46,000 if you're single. I think it's 80 grand if you're a couple. I think head household is 6. I try to remember it just off the top of my making me just off the top of my head. I think the assessed value is about 718,000 this time, I think. You're able to get back a portion of your property tax. And I think I'm trying to remember. And then there's also like up to 50% of your water bill.
Yeah.
You also get a portion back if you pay a rent, but you don't qualify if you pay subsidized rent.
Okay.
So if you're like in public housing, or you get Section 8, or you have other government assistance, you don't qualify. And also, if you're a parent or if you're individual, it can be claimed as a dependent by another individual. You don't qualify. So not uncommon, like in my situation. You end up, as I like to say, you end up paying for everything, and your parent doesn't have a high income, and if that person could become your dependent. So if you're taking care of your mom or dad, or even a friend, a close friend that you're taking care of financially, that individual over age 65 that tries to apply for the circuit breaker won't qualify for the credit. So keep that in mind that if you're over 65, try to take this tax credit. If you are a dependent on another, if you are independent on someone else's taxes, you don't qualify.
Right. Yeah. But it's worth looking into. It just doesn't cost you anything to check into it, and could be a big benefit for sure. Speaking of taxes, the feds aren't going to tax our state rebates from last year.
Yeah, we talked about this last time. It was extremely confusing. And on Friday, they started issuing guidance. They're going to treat this rebate, refund, credit, rebate, whatever we want to call it now, as the same as if it was a normal tax situation. So those of us that took the standard deduction will not have to pay federal taxes. However, the state, if you do get itemized deduction, your Schedule A deduction, and you get a tax rebate, the state will issue you a 1099-G.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And of course that's taxable income. So you go to the IRS will follow the state guidelines regarding reporting of refunds, so to speak. And whatever happens there, and then you apply that to your federal taxes.
Yeah. So at least we have a decision, so we can move ahead.
Yeah, I think it'll take a little while for accountants to get a little up to date, but it should be fairly quick. And wait for you got using software-based taxes systems at home. Give it a few minutes, it'll be updated, or a few days, and it'll update, and then people should be just fine. And also, tax days are kind of an odd day again, because I believe the 17th of April is Emancipation Day, which is Monday in April, and I think that's also Patriots Day.
That's right. It is. Yeah. It's also Marathon Monday.
Yeah, so that means the state is a holiday. So you got a DC holiday, not a federal holiday, but a DC holiday, and you have a state holiday, so taxes are due April 18th.
Right, get an extra day, so.
Mhm.
So what's going on in the district these days, Jackie?
Well, it's been overall fairly quiet. Obviously, some events this past weekend. With Chili Cook-Off, Chili Fest out in Hell's Neck. I mean, we had the mayor's state dress. Obviously had a special election last week. But I mean, it's been pretty quiet overall. I mean, the Quincy Sun has some good updates what's happening, and I'm aware that the council's starting debate about the Corey Links, Granite Links, Granite Links 99-year lease home rule petition. They'll have to send to the legislature if any government entity decides to do a long-term lease, a 99-year lease. It requires a legislative approval on if it's on government land. So basically, if city tries to lease out a piece of city land for 99 years. Actually, I don't remember exact law on this, but I mean, it's a lot. You got to be a substantial number of years, and it requires state approval. So, I mean, I know that the council started debating that on Monday as they're trying to sort out the terms and conditions. I took a quick peek at the home rule petition. It doesn't have terms and conditions. It just basically gives the city, gives the mayor the ability to negotiate the lease on behalf of everybody, and that's it. There's no terms and conditions in the home rule petition. So, obviously, the council can amend the home rule petition if they so choose. Hopefully, they'll engage in rigorous debate on this home rule petition. The state delegation does not participate in this negotiation, just to let you all know, even though we get the legislation. So whatever the deal the city comes up with is what the delegation is going to go with, because it's not, we are not the municipality. So it's the council and the mayor to make those decisions and how they want to finalize that agreement. And this is a 99-year agreement. What you got now is what you're going to be stuck with.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, by the time it gets to the state level, it's either yay or nay.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any problems. It should go through very quickly once we receive it. But anybody listening here know that you can call me about it, but I'm not going to do anything about it because I really can't do anything about it because I'm not a negotiating party here.
Right.
So we have strong feelings about the Granite Links golf course, which the O'Connells have put a lot of money into it. I mean, it's a beautiful location. It is a revenue generator for the city. It is a form of economic development. If you think about it a little more, it is.
It's the Hannons, right?
Hannons, yeah. Walter Hannon the fourth is running it.
I think that's right. Yeah.
I can't remember. Yeah, I know. I can't remember which number is in front of the name, but yeah, if you've got concerns, definitely contact the mayor's office. Definitely contact your city councilor, even though it's in West Quincy. Nothing prohibits you from contacting your ward councilor or your councilors at large to express your opinion. And what would you like to see in this home rule petition? And ask your councilors, will they amend it? And like I said, it's a 99-year deal. I mean, and it's a profit-making industry. It's not like golf courses are going away anytime soon. So, this is a very high stakes in terms of what it means to the taxpayers of the city. On a company that's very successful, and they should be successful. We want to be successful, but obviously the taxpayers should receive some benefit on something that they're making money on, government property.
Yeah. Speaking of the Quincy Sun, I read the story about the proposed legislation to make teacher strikes legal.
Yeah, John Keenan likes to write stuff and express an opinion. This is a interesting controversy is going to become up on Beacon Hill regarding public employees' ability to strike, and whether or not public employees should no longer be considered essential employees for the purpose of striking. Now, you all have seen teacher strikes in the past, but they're actually scheduled teacher strikes, meaning they work with administration on when they're going to walk off and how they're going to make up class time. If certain groups can't really strike on work hours, police and fire are the two that come to mind right away.
Okay.
When they do strike, it's on their own time, not on duty, and they can picket, they can do what they want to do, but not on their own time.
Gotcha.
Unions sometimes, not all unions are different. Some unions will compensate people on strike if they go on strike on work time from their own treasury, which I think you saw. Where was it? Was it Woburn? Was that
Yes.
where that?
Yep.
So I believe the teachers were being compensated. I mean, I don't think they were getting full compensation,
Right.
but I think they're getting a little bit of money, for the time they're on strike. It also drains the treasury. So, and a lot of questions here because teachers are not fire police, but not having school on a regular schedule, as we've seen during Snowzilla
Hmm.
year and also during COVID years, has actually a huge impact on the education and the learning process for children. And also, you still got to meet the state guidelines of meeting a minimum number of days, which
Yeah.
extends the school year. It also disrupts the course curriculum. You're not going to get substitute teachers unless you and I decide to go in, do a study class or something.
Right. Just to tame the masses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an intriguing issue because public employees in general are not uh, allowed to strike, especially those considered essential employees. Like, what if the entire MWRA walks off the job,
Hmm.
right? And you still got to monitor the water and the sewage and everything else, right?
That's
So
a public health issue at that point. Right. Yeah.
yeah, or Massport goes on strike, you just
Yeah.
shut down the whole airport, right? So, while teachers may not or may consider themselves that important, I don't know. You have to ask a teacher. I mean, I'm sure every teacher has a different opinion, but there is a huge impact on our children. Whenever this disruption in school.
Yeah. And it impacts their families, obviously, if they can't get daycare, if they have to go to work. So it's considerable for sure.
Yeah, and those kind of situations obviously can turn public opinion very quickly against you.
Hmm.
Well, people do support folks to get living wage or make more money. I mean, let's just call it it is. Everyone wants to make more money. It doesn't take much for the public to sour on you if you're having a negative impact on their lives, particularly if it's over a long period of time.
Right. Yeah.
Just live through it. I mean, it's called COVID. I mean,
Yep.
people were just upset all the time, and government was in the receiving end of the upset because government was making those decisions.
Right. Speaking of making more money, have you heard there's an effort now to increase the minimum wage in the state to $20 an hour?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, this happened the last time too. The last time we raised the minimum wage to the target number on the scale in multiple years, just like we did last time. And big surprise, as soon as we hit the target number, advocacy groups again return to justify their existence, because if they don't advocate for something, then there's no point to them, to increase minimum wage to $20. And the argument, of course, is quote unquote living wage. Minimum wage, if you want a living wage, try like $50 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's be honest about this. Let's not fool people here.
Especially in this part of the country, right? Yeah.
Absolutely inside the 128 belt. Absolutely. When you all think about the cost of housing, the cost of food, cost of transport, even if you ride the MBTA, it is substantial. If you want to try to live as a single individual by yourself, much less have a family. And I think in the city of Boston, I think it's well past 90 grand now for a single individual to try to live singly alone without creating like a savings account for retirement and things like that.
Yeah.
And certain things, costs that we never thought we have to pick up. For example, streaming services. People need to cut back on streaming services because they can't make ends meet, right? People have cut the cord, but it doesn't mean they're not paying for entertainment, right? So I know it's a changing world how we live. I know how the costs have changed, but I mean, it's not a surprise. It happened last time. It happened the time before, and if we may change the minimum wage again to a future number, it's going to happen again. These advocacy groups will show up right away.
Yeah.
And right now, I mean, people are exceeding minimum wage. Many businesses have to because, again, it's a labor-friendly market. A combination of the probably 40-ish% of the folks that died of COVID were working age folks, plus, percentage of them were senior citizens who also died of COVID that were also engaged in the workforce, plus people who decided that retirement was a good idea because they were smart enough to get out of the stock market at the right time in 2021, early 22, because they cashed out and decided it was time to go, and property prices were high, and people want to enjoy their lives. And then you got people right now changing jobs looking for the highest bidder, which is their prerogative too. So a $20 minimum wage is probably not quite reflective of the current economy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this year what the Fed does with interest rates. Inflation's starting to slow. It's not stopped. It's not reversed. But I don't know if that's enough, to tamper things down.
Well, CPI numbers came out this morning, and they did not meet estimates. They're all slightly higher. I mean, it wasn't like a huge number. I mean, 0.1%, 0.4 versus 0.3, right? But I mean, the core indexes are 0.2 or 3 higher than expected. And these core indexes will be adjusted next month because these are always lagging indicators. So the number you see today will be adjusted. For example, December's CPI numbers were adjusted up by 0.1% on the core parts because they got final numbers in February for the numbers in December. So, but the Fed target is still 2% inflation. Most of us who have lived the last decade, in particular, have enjoyed under 2% inflation. Also, wage didn't grow at the same time. Wage and inflation tends to go together, not always, but there's a reason why we weren't making the same amount of money that you're seeing now, because wages is part of inflation. Businesses have to pay people more. Those costs are passed to you.
Right.
On top of everything else that's going on around us. It's kind of this vicious cycle. So
it is, yeah.
So the Feds, I'm going to tell you, are going to keep interest rates going if there's no clear indication of even faster decline. And the problem is that the interest rate increases won't impact people really truly until the end of this year because, it impacted home purchase right away. It impacted car purchases. But also remember supply chain problems with car purchases because you can't get a car still in some instances of the models you want. Elon Musk has already dropped Tesla prices, as you all saw, because he needs money to pay for Twitter. But also, price competition's coming hard and fast from the big three. Ford, GM, all right now pushing hard their electric vehicle output, as well as China has encouraged domestic market development on electric cars, and China is the biggest customer for Elon Musk. People don't realize it's not the U.S., it is China, and he's facing huge price competition over there. So, but again, that also creates other types of stress demand on supply chain, especially on new vehicles. And then also, home building right now, a lot of development is finishing up. It's my understanding by 2025, a lot of the current projects under construction in Boston will probably slow down after that as they kind of plan the next stage of development. Interest rates going up means it's harder for developers to borrow. Because it'll be more expensive and those costs are going to translate along. So, some industries may be holding off on borrowing, hoping rates go down for future development. So there's those factors. Well, and I also heard from more than one person now about, city of Boston is the big economic driver and how Mayor Wu has pretty much put the brakes on development, meaning there's going to be very little new construction. And, right now she's halted a very substantial number of projects moving forward. As a result, that's a huge economic problem in the geographic region because it's just not a construction job, but it's also all the ancillary businesses that impact construction. Steel, concrete, food services, and the list goes on, right? I mean, portable bathrooms. I mean, it's a long list of impacts on a large construction job if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna hamper the Healy's administration. I know they've put housing right at the very top of their priority list, so it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that.
Absolutely, and the Healy administration, can only do so much.
Right.
So, but still, I mean, they still it's private development, right? So you got a combination of rising interest rates, and you have a mayor who's trying to, reevaluate development by slowing development down. And the Healy administration, can't really do much. In fact, you can try to infuse more bond money to public projects, that would help cost, right? In terms of putting what people on the street to work.
Yeah.
So I know unemployment rates, under 3.5%, lowest employment rate since World War II. After World War II, right, the decade of economic boom in this country.
Yeah.
But still, we'll see how it plays out. But I don't think you're going to see the full impacts of all these decisions. Will probably end this year, beginning of next.
Want to talk national news for a little bit? We blasted 4 things out of the sky since last you and I talked last week, Tech, including one over Canada.
Yeah, I mean, we are discussing last time about one balloon that was quite enormous. It was several bus sizes, and but these are significantly smaller ones, closer to the size of small cars, and they were quite descended. They're right inside the flying lanes. So, I mean, air traffic has height to go to, and then specific flight paths, and these things are floating into flight paths. And I think the hazardous nature of it warranted immediate action versus taking your time and trying to find a good spot to do recovery. And they did do recovery. I mean, they did pull a lot of stuff. There was a lot of concern about whether they would be trapping explosives and things like that on them. And thankfully to the U.S. military, the Coast Guard, and our intelligence agencies and groups like the FBI and CIA, they're able to recover that. And, what they can tell us public about it, I don't know. But, I suspect the powers that be down there will figure out the proper messaging regarding what's there. It's not necessarily a message to the American people, but also a message to the Chinese government about what we know and don't know, just to clue them in just enough. And I'm sure there's also backdoor channel conversations between, the national security chief, as well as the defense secretary and the secretary of state with their counterparts, overseas, not just in China, but also, throughout the European allies and North American allies that we have. And the Chinese government's accused the U.S. of floating a balloon, off the coast between Japan and China in the ocean there, and they shot it down. And it was one analyst said, "Why would we use balloons? We're the United States.
We have satellites already." Yeah,
We got a ton of satellites and like high flying planes, and we got like surveillance equipment that's just insane. And
not to mention they use naval presence already in that area.
yeah, a lot of military analysts are like, why would we use balloons? We're the US.
Right, that's World War II technology.
Yeah, like we have better stuff. So obviously the propaganda machine's big in the Chinese government. I find their foreign affairs ministry kind of confusing at times to listen to. How they message this wolf diplomacy. Wolf diplomacy is basically constantly playing offense diplomacy. You constantly just attack the other side. We had thought with changing foreign ministers over there that they would temper down that, but it appears that is still not the case. And we'll see what's recovered. I mean, obviously I said before, if it hits land and it's not designed to hit land, you're going to have a different result versus something hitting the water. And stuff that hits the Bering Straits, don't have a good chance of living, up in Alaska. But,
right.
Like I said, I have full faith in the United States and also the Canadian partners in Canada to do proper recovery. But yeah, this is kind of nuts. And some reason my gut tells me you'll be finding more coming.
Well, I think one analyst said they're looking for more. They've increased their surveillance capacity to look at lower altitudes and smaller objects.
Yeah, and once again, once these balloons go into air, there's only so much control you have over them. It's not like they have a propulsion system. They must have a steering mechanism of some kind, but it isn't like they have like an engine in them that can push them specifically where they want to go. And I don't know what's going on in them. I mean, the smart person would tell you they have GPS capacity. They would have, encrypted transmission ability of whatever the heck they're doing. They should have a power source. Solar panels make the most sense, like you saw the giant one that he shot down a week ago plus. But obviously needs electricity someplace. That's, I would assume, the smart thing to do. But who really knows, right? I mean, the government tells us what they want to tell us, although they've confirmed it's not extraterrestrial.
The mothership is not coming just yet. No.
You gotta love reporters asking questions, and neither want to confirm nor deny answers, because it's like, really?
I know.
Say this question? You've seen what it looks like. It's a balloon.
Really can't hold a being.
I swear, I don't understand how come certain people in the media just feel to ask just dumb. It's just dumb.
sometimes their editors are telling them to ask these questions because it's going to get a great headline or, boost ratings for a certain show or something.
Ugh, I get it, but it's still dumb. I mean, it's like tabloid news type of questions,
Yeah.
particularly since like it's been eyewitnessed by like normal people on the ground using telescopes and their own high powered surveillance devices. I mean,
Right.
Civilian observation is pretty good. I mean, it's not military grade, but you could buy stuff yourself to see the International Space Station on a good night.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm sure many eyes in the sky are now people who are observers of the stars and satellites and all that. Probably looking up themselves to try to see if they can spot objects because it piques the curiosity, and why not? Right? I mean, people saw a Starlink satellite streak by.
Oh yeah.
People weren't sure what they were looking at, and not surprising, the meteorologists all confirmed it was a Starlink, and the weather's clear enough, you may see it come by again.
Yeah. Speaking of, private citizens, that's Elon Musk's SpaceX company doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, he wants to put 12,000 of these into the sky.
Mm.
That's a lot of satellites.
Yeah. So the goal, I guess, improve internet access in rural areas, according to the company anyway.
Yeah, there's this type of radio/infrared type. I'm not exactly sure how this technology is, because I'm aware there's been infrared style, wide wavelength internet that is not nearly as high quality as wired internet at home or 5G at home. But Elon folks have figured out how to do this at a much more high speed and more efficient rate, because you want a wider length bandwidth to hit the satellite target in the ground to provide internet. It's about how much bandwidth you got to get the speed across. Mm-hmm. So I don't claim to understand this technology, but the ability to provide some level of broadband, even if it's not 5G or high speed fiber optic quality, is still sufficient. And I think people overrate exactly how much speed you need. You don't need to be, streaming, Game of Thrones or White Lotus right away, right? In some places, you just need to get, information back and forth. So
right, you need to be able to email somebody perhaps or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it is exactly it. And it's a world-changing technology, not just in places that can't get wired internet, but also remote regions for people doing scientific work, for example. I think of Antarctica in particular, right? You have a crew of scientists out there that really is in isolation. And things like Starlink, if it works out properly, can not just transmit information back and forth, but sufficient bandwidth could also provide, some form of video and also communication to people in this world we're living like right now, right? I mean, better quality video and things like that. So, it is a very exciting technology, and it is definitely the way of the future.
Oh, no question. Yeah, it's only going to get more prolific as years go on. Let's bring it back home for a little bit and talk about green energy in Massachusetts, Tacky. Is it expanding? Is it diminishing? Is it on track to meet the goals of the state, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved. I mean, the big two factors is the Hydro-Quebec line coming down through Maine. I think that's reaching a resolution soon regarding that line being built. And, of course, the windmills of the coast of Block Island. The issuance of more contracts are out. And I know there's some issues still regarding inflationary prices on materials that's impacting the price structure of windmills being built, which I believe can be resolved. But yeah, it's coming. The problem is they got to build it. I mean, there's an unrealistic expectation by the public sometimes that, we move forward with energy policy, turn on the switch, next month and suddenly you got, windmill power. You still got these things in the ground. And, there is a carbon footprint associated with it, but it's going to be offset by the future generation. That's the math, I guess. I kind of scratch my head about some of this math because I just find offsets kind of a weird math, but that's a discussion for a different day.
Yeah.
But I mean, the continuation of the tax credits to get more electric vehicles on the road. One of the problems, of course, is that you can't use anything with Chinese part in an electric vehicle. So you saw like today, Ford is going to put batteries in the United States for their Ford electric cars moving forward. So in the process of building a factory to do that with a Chinese partner, but it's technically not a Chinese part because Ford will own everything.
Mhm.
And but I mean, the Biden administration had to readjust their EV guidelines to try to expand the number of vehicles that people could take advantage of tax credits to buy electric vehicles.
Yeah, I just wonder sometimes if we're doing cart before the horse, because the electrical infrastructure, can it support, the volume of electric vehicles that officials are hoping to meet?
Oh, no, it won't. I just
Yeah.
going to. I mean, the electrical infrastructure is 60 years out of date. I mean, it really is, not just on the big transmission lines, but also the wire in front of your house, underneath your house, and even the wires inside your house. So, there's all this talk about massive electrification, but if you do massive electrification, increase the load, and it actually, creates heat on the wires. People forget that electricity going on the wires creates heat. That's kind of how the law of physics works. And, everybody that draws off the system, changes the load on the system, which then changes the amount of power someone at the end the system can get. And then it creates instability in the system. So you have to generate enough power to allow for so-called electrification. And, this includes these electric buses, school buses and MBTA buses that are going to be coming online probably in the next 2 years. I mean, put a lot of grant money into that stuff.
Yep.
So, there's going to be a need for ratepayers. Your electric bill at some point is going to have, quite frankly, an increase when the utility companies actually come forward to the DPU with an infrastructure plan. And it'll be decades infrastructure plan. It won't be like 1 year. So whatever they come up with will probably be in multiple parts, asking for rate increases to cover the capital costs associated with it because they have to bond it out. It's a combination of bond, repair money, and shareholder money that's going to pay for it. And, some ratio that makes sense, most efficient economically. And then, the electric distribution rate is going to have to go up, at least temporarily, to pay for the costs and the bonds. So, you got to pay for this somehow, folks. It's not like it's going to happen, but it's going to have to happen regardless anyway, because even without increased electrical usage, the system is old.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
yeah, it's strained even in today's standards. If we have a heat wave or a cold snap, there's already danger of it overloading.
Correct. And the federal government needs to step forward regarding transmission system. I mean, the feds have to make a decision at some point whether they're going to subsidize utility companies to operate transmission systems and just basically have federal tax dollars help pick up some of that cost to do a massive infrastructure improvement. And also you saw the security issue, right? They caught a neo-Nazi group. Caught a neo-Nazi group. I think in Maryland.
Possibly. Yeah, I wanted to say North Carolina, but
maybe it's North Carolina. I can't remember the exact details right this minute because we're doing like recall right away. But I mean, they went after the local distribution system, and there's going to be more of these domestic terror opportunities for these folks to try to hit soft targets and cause whatever thing they're trying to cause, right? So, that also impacts people's electric bills. So, I would tell you that at some point, doesn't matter who's the president, who's in Congress, the transmission system security, plus the needs a massive upgrade is essential. If we're going to do more onshoring, we're going to need a national system upgrade too, as we want to bring manufacturing, especially high-tech manufacturing, back to the U.S. If everyone wants an electric stove, heat pump, electric car, electric water heater, electric everything at home, your distribution rate, it's going to have to pay for those infrastructure costs at some point. And not surprising, any time you do these types of big projects, the biggest beneficiary is actually wealthier communities.
Oh, really? How's that?
They can afford it.
Oh, well, good point. Yes.
So the first sections, even of all these subsidies, going to benefit the most, but generally wealthier communities. And then more working class communities will subsidize wealthy communities regarding any type of infrastructure improvements because they received immediate benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about municipal power companies, Braintree Electric, for instance?
Well, no, almost no municipal light plant in the state actually generates power anymore. They gave up their generation a long time ago.
Oh, it's a distribution company.
They're basically a distribution company. Running a power plant is very expensive.
Mm.
A lot of maintenance costs, a lot of manpower, a lot of capital improvements, even with these depreciation tax benefits, and municipalities do not get depreciation tax benefits. It actually makes more sense to have it in private hands in terms of, trying to keep a plant alive 50 to 100 years, whether it be, solar or nuclear or coal, it doesn't matter. I mean, the goal is to keep the plant long running as possible, and it's tied to their debt. Right. You can't get rid of it before the debt's paid off. Right. So municipal plants essentially type of municipal aggregation. They engage in long-term contracts. Municipal light plants have experts who do this for a living in terms of energy price structures, and they'll put out to bid in the market. Also, municipal plants are exempted from many state laws regarding things like surcharges and renewable power requirements, as well as energy efficiency, which is why municipal plant distribution rates are significantly lower because of the fact that you don't have to follow state law on things that you have to pay for in Quincy. They also have no shareholder component, meaning that they actually reduce some of the costs as well. But they also pay into the pension program at the government level. They're treated, like government employees. So there's always that factor that kind of addresses it. They're responsible for the wires, the poles and the wires in that town. They can do sharing with a private utility, depending on circumstances of ownership and so forth. And if there's a major storm, just like all utilities, they would have contractual agreements with a neighboring utility to provide emergency assistance, and they have a whole reimbursement program for manpower and equipment and supplies. So people realize after a big storm event is over, the telecommunication, the municipal light plants, and all the utilities, start tallying the bills up of who went where, what, how, and they start the massive reimbursements to each other.
Yeah, because as you're aware, there's talking here in Quincy of creating a municipal broadband network funded by an enterprise fund. But would that fall under state purview?
Well, the DTC, has oversight a lot of consumer issues, as well as the franchise agreements between the cable companies and the states and towns. But it's actually complicated. We're trying to keep this simple so we don't have to sit here for an hour listening to babble. To do municipal broadband, you need to do some basics. One is the most obvious: customer base. If you have a guaranteed customer base, whether you do cash, but most likely it's going to be bonded, you're going to secure the bonds against the customer base rates. Secondly, you need to get access to people's homes, which means you got to get onto the poles. At least going to put your own poles up. And as well as the underground access and easements, and that means a lease agreement with the utility that owns it, because other entities do use their poles and lease, like Comcast. We'll get to the simplest one, right? Comcast lease the pole space as part of being able to get to your house, because why would you do it for free, right?
Right. Yeah.
Utility's not going to give it for free. I mean, certain public safety things like, the fireboxes, whatnot, are special exceptions, but, this is a profit-making venture, right? And then, it's also, you're not just competitive, but you have to have a minimum number of customers guaranteed. And the key word is guaranteed, meaning that, I come on, but I don't like you, I'm going to switch back,
Right.
And even if I pay an exit fee, I'm sick of whatever service I'm getting. Well, that's one less customer, which means that impacts your ability to operate the business, but also impacts the ability to pay off your debt. And then you also have the manpower issue. Besides the labor market, this is a short supply. So unless you're going to start stealing people from Comcast, Verizon, and others, you're probably going to rely on contractors, and contractors are going to go to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And then you need unless the city wants to run the core switchboard themselves, so to speak, the master system, they're going to have to hire a third party to do that as well, which then adds to the cost.
Expensive venture, sounds like. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're talking, probably $250 million perhaps, just to get the basics going. On just capital components, maybe even higher. You do want to buy the latest, greatest, shiniest thing, meaning fiber optic. Fiber optics are very expensive right now, supply chain.
Right.
And who knows how long the negotiation regarding the polls are regarding lease agreements. I have no clue what that conversation, how far they got and how many years worth of a lease they can get.
Yep.
And also, what if it doesn't follow through? What if the after a few years in, this project turns out to be not profit making, and there's a property taxpayer end up showing that cost, right? That becomes a real question. It's a business, not a chair, and because you got to figure it out. And the city wouldn't get any tax benefits in terms of the depreciation or other types of tax benefits associated with capital projects, unless they spin off a quasi public corporation that's really a private entity, a for-profit entity owned by the city, explicitly for the purposes of being able to shout in the burden onto that entity. But then again, you have different risk level because that entity would not have any securitization behind it. There's no shareholders. There's no property. There's nothing that a bank would want to say, okay, I'll owe you $100 million. Right. It's not like a municipal light plant, which is already a 100-year-old established entity. They have all the assets. They have the ratepayer money from the electrical bills to back a municipal a telecom project. But Braintree sold theirs to Comcast. It became economically non-viable, and it's going to have a negative impact on electric bills.
Right.
If they continue the path. And, wisely, they did the math and realized that we have a mature telecom company infrastructure that's modern, and Comcast had an aging infrastructure, and it made perfect sense for Comcast to buy the newer infrastructure from Braintree and make a tidy profit in the process. If the city engages own municipal system, does it hit a certain customer base where Comcast, a future may purchase like 20 years down the road. These are a lot of intriguing questions. In case you're all wondering, energy and telecommunication industries are industries I spend a lot of time working on public policy on.
Yes.
In the legislature and the Attorney General's office. So I do have some basic concepts on how this work, and I do spend a lot of talking to cable TV and wireless and wired communication systems, and a whole lot of technology folks as part of my chair. I was at Technic, for Pete's sakes. That was actually a lot of fun. It's a bit of a nerd, I know, but it was a lot of fun about everything from wireless cars to the dangers of ride sharing in terms of public safety, as well as how do we keep kids safe on the internet and all the different barriers associated with it. So yeah. So like I said, these are questions not for me. These are questions for the municipal government. Can it be done? Sure. But you got to calculate the risk levels, and you have certain limitations and benefits, as a municipality versus being a private entity. And the state and federal governments put a lot of money into broadband, and we know that even dense urban areas like Boston does not have internet service to all sectors of the city at equal levels, and that's also part of socioeconomic equity. Everybody should get internet for equal quality for equal price.
We are at the end of our time today, Techie. Unfortunately, we could go on about this topic, I'm sure, for quite a while.
Oh yeah, there's things we talk about rural broadband and the economics of that, where private companies would have difficulty because, again, if you don't get enough customers in your geographic zone compared to the infrastructure put in, especially in a small community. Yeah, I mean, a town of like 300.
Yeah, they won't invest in that, right? It's just not going to be, the numbers won't work.
The numbers won't work, and if they're going to do that, they got to figure something out that makes sense. Hence, subsidies, hundreds of millions of dollars of subsidy by federal and state to encourage private entities to go into those communities.
Yeah.
Put in perspective, hundreds of million dollars are going to be spent over many years in Massachusetts by both state and feds to try to figure out how to get to rural communities. So it's not cheap, and who knows what's going to happen next. So, but as you say, we're at the end of the hour, and Valentine's Day, we're not going to keep you up from your chocolate strawberries.
That's correct. How do we call and wish you a happy Valentine's Day?
Okay, give us a call at the office at 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. Please give us a ring, smash a button if you're not sure what to do. If you get the automated system, and one of us will get back to you. Obviously, you can email me at tackey.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan @mahouse.gov. My email is actually fairly stable right now, much to my shock. It's coming in waves. So it's kind of like I'm in a low part of the wave today. As of this morning, yesterday was high tide. Today's like a low tide for whatever reason. Obviously, State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook. You can see my coming and goings if you want to there, as well as tackychat.org and malegislature.gov, which is the state website. And of course, spending time with Joe here on QATV would be on cable access or YouTube or your podcast.
Absolutely. We have many different ways to reach people. Appreciate it, Tacky. Always fun. Hugs and kisses to you and yours.
Thank you much. And the same to you.